All right, we're on. SDS running it back for another week, a huge week of sport as well. You got your rugby league, the Olympics well and truly in full swing. The All Black squad for the Rugby Championship has been named, so there's so much to rip into. Can't wait to get around it all. Shout out to the TAB as always, of course, headline sponsors for this podcast. Really appreciate their support. If you're having a flutter this weekend, please do so responsibly, but get around the TAB. Download their app or head along to the website www.tab.co.nz. Sign yourself up. There's plenty of options to get around. Power plays, boosts, the Surly boost as well, which is always a weekly highlight for a lot of you. I know. Fingers crossed I can dish up a winner this week. Feeling pretty confident about my selection. So let's see how that goes. Shout out as well to Better Bear, official bear of the Surly Talk Sports podcast. 0 carbs, 87 cows. She's a grouse drop to tuck into while you're watching some sport. So if you are having a couple beers this week, head along to your local bottle shop, grab yourself a box of Better Bear. Comes in the bottles or the cans. You won't regret it. How bloody good. Speaking of getting on the beers, had a pretty big weekend last weekend, to be fair. Pretty run-of-the-mill stuff, but this one was a double header, a mini bender. Warriors got the dub, so had to celebrate that, of course, on the Friday night. Enjoyed a couple then. Then on Saturday, she was the wife's birthday, so pushed the boat out for back-to-back days. Hopefully a tame one this weekend, but again, Warriors tomorrow night on your Friday night. Then rolling into my first ever commentary debut on Saturday, teaming up with Anthony Galling, old Jello, for some Auckland Rugby League commentary. So get around that. I'll chuck the live stream up on my story on Instagram. Hit the link and tune in. 3 games, under 18 boys final, under 18 girls final, and then the restricted final featuring the old Mount Albert Mad Dogs, a team that's been running amok on social media. So looking forward to that. Commentary seems like bloody good fun, so let's see how I go, and a real pleasure to do it with Jello as well, one of the greats. So many boxes to tick today though, so without further ado, I reckon we get straight into it. Skip the entrees, tuck into the main course. How bloody good. NRL, 21 rounds in the books. Man, does the season fly by. Sad to see it's almost coming to an end, but still so much quality football to tuck the teeth into before that happens. Plenty of news from last week as well, including that historic announcement from the mighty Warriors. We've become the first club in NRL history and New Zealand sporting history, the double, to sell out every home game this year. And when you factor in our sold-out preseason games and those sold-out games at the back end of last year as well, I think it's 17 games on the trot where the sold-out sign has gone up at Mount Smart, and that is bloody massive. Of course, last year, results were outstanding. We were a top 4 side. This year, the wins, they haven't quite been as frequent, but still the momentum has continued. It just shows how many fans are along for the ride now. Win or lose, people show up at the Fortress, and you gotta love it. You hear the players talk week in and week out about how special it is to run out there in front of a packed house. It really does give them a massive lift. So shout out to all the Warriors fans. We've gone and created history. I see some Aussies online as well trying to throw shade on it, say that Suncorp's double the capacity and whatnot, which is absolutely true, but at the same time, still, you got to sell out 24,000 plus tickets per week. It's not bloody easy to do. Half of the games, cold night games, she's pissing down, but still everyone turns up week in and week out despite the results, through the good times and the bad. I've always said the Warriors are our national team, the people's team, and it's good to see the ticket sales now reflect that too. So shout out to everyone that's got along to a game as of late. On top of that too, great news for Vegas. We're the biggest selling team so far early doors for ticket sales. 33% of the total sales have been bought by Warriors fans, and in more historic news as well, we'll become the first NRL game to ever be broadcast live and free to air on Fox Sports in America, which has a potential reach of 125 plus million homes. And I don't think this news has been quite well as recognized as it should be. This is a massive achievement. The potential exposure that it has for our club and the game of rugby league is through the roof. There's even rumors that Tom Brady is going to be involved in the commentary. So this has potential to change the game, not only for our club, but for the NRL in general. What better matchup than Warriors versus Raiders? A bit of bad blood there as of late. Bit of a rivalry forming too, so can't wait to be over in Vegas for that one. In terms of your player news, Stefano Utoikamanu, he's pulled pin on the Tigers. It's a shame really, purely because I like their young roster that they were building for next year with Jerome Luai and Sunia Taruva both joining them. I think Luai has massive potential to have a huge impact on that club, especially with the form he's in at the moment, and I think he's going to love the opportunity to wear the 7 jersey, own a team, and steer them in the right direction. But Stefano, he's decided he wants to play finals football. He doesn't see the direction that the Tigers are going in, and now he's on the move. Plenty of chat it was to Melbourne, but that his partner doesn't want to leave Sydney, so it's believed the Storm and the Dogs are your favourites. Personally, I really think he'd go well at either of those clubs. I think at Melbourne, he'd become definitely a top 5 prop under Craig Bellamy and in that system, because we've seen how much of a success it has been for players in the past. Just look at Sean Bloor and Ali Katoa as of recent. Old Bellamy can turn water into wine, and Stefano, he's already got the makings of one of the game's greats. At the Bulldogs, I think he'll be just as good, and they need a big body through the middle, to be fair. So I think if Gus Gould has his way, then he'll be at Belmore in 2025, and that'll be a great get for them. When you think of their recruitment as of late, what they're doing already, the culture they've formed, the results they've had this year, adding a big bopper like Stefano to that forward pack would go a long way to seeing them look even better next season. Selwyn Cobbo, unfortunately, been arrested for domestic violence. That's still pending charges. It's early days, so can't touch on that too much, but you hate to see headlines like that. And it's reported Valentine Holmes, he's being shopped around by the Cowboys as well. Straight away, the Dragons, they become favourites to sign him, and they could pay the dollars that his contract is worth, because he's on pretty big money at the Cows at the moment. At the same time, though, I think the Roosters could also be an option for him. They have centre spots to fill, with Joseph Suaalii and Joseph Manu both departing to Rugby Union. His best mate, Chad Townsend, he's going there next year, so perhaps he favours that familiarity and heads his way to Bondi. Dragons, though, they have the big bickies. They got Damien Cook next year. They're forming a pretty decent roster. They're losing Zach Lomax, so they'll be looking for a strike winger option there, and Valentine could well be that guy. Interesting move from the Cowboys. Of course, Val's still a rep level player, currently plays for the Aussie and for the Maroons. At the same time, though, they're clearly prioritising signing some of their younger guns, locking them down for the future and spending their money elsewhere, which is bloody fair enough too. In terms of your big results from last week, Bulldogs, just touched on them, but man, did they put on a clinic to pump the Broncos, all without their inspirational skipper too in Stephen Crichton. And the most impressive thing for me from this game was their attacking display, because they're known as a defensive side, a team that can restrict you to fuck all points, and they get their win by scoring maybe 20 odd per game. But it was their ability and willingness to move the ball, play from width to width, use that versatile pack that they have to play around that Broncos compressed D. They're big second rowers, they'll punch through your edges, and they were targeting Katoni Staggs, who had a bloody tough day at the office. He was like a leaky sieve, so well done to the Dogs. I thought they looked extremely impressive on a dry track in Suncorp Stadium. Connor Tracy, he was massive, scored 3 tries, also had 3 try assists too, which is pretty wild. He played a hand in 6 of the Bulldogs' 7 tries that they dotted down. On top of that, your usual suspects, your Matty Burden, your Jacob Keras, Sexton, I thought he was really good too. And shout out to Jarrell Skelton, who's an absolute weapon whenever he gets a chance. Ran for over 300 metres, only his second year in rugby league. He looks to be a real talent. Notice he's off contract as well, so I think the Bulldogs will want to lock him down quick smart, because I'm sure opposition clubs will start to circle. Crichton, Adokar, they're both back this week, so that'll be a huge boost for them. What a year this club has had. They really battled last year, finished in 15th with just 7 wins, but already after 21 rounds they got 10 wins, 8 losses. Seems like they've formed an unreal culture. Crichton, he's had a massive impact in year 1, 22 or 23 years old as the skipper. I've never quite seen anything like that. Cammy Serraldo, he started to really implement his coaching methods, and then also the work of Jason Taylor, their attacking coach. I don't think that can be underestimated as well, and it was interesting to hear Coach Serraldo talk on SEN in Australia. He said heading into the bye 2 weeks ago, their focus was to transform their attack, because they were happy with their D, but not happy with how they were using the Stead when they had it. It looks like they've done that, come up with a few different ways to play, and shit did it work in the weekend. For the Broncos, really disappointing for them. I thought last week that return of Adam Reynolds, that was going to be the switch flicker for their season. Not to be though, they got completely outplayed at home in what was a must-win game, and I think that's now their 5th or 6th straight loss at Suncorp Stadium this year, which historically is pretty unheard of. They have the Cowboys, the Storm, and the Dolphins still to come, and they can't afford to drop one more game, so you'd have to think you can put a line through them now and that their season is done. Melbourne, they do Melbourne things, put on a clinic against Parramatta to extend their lead at the top of the ladder on 36 points. They're now sitting 4 points clear. Looks like they've locked up the minor premiership, and it appears them and Penrith have clearly established themselves as your grand final favourites early doors. Cammy Munster, he was back off the bench. Scary to think how good they could be if he was there all year. One of the best players in the comp, and he's barely played. 15 wins from 18 games this season. That's elite shit. Melbourne Storm, they just rinse and repeat every year, and it's bloody unreal. Nathan Cleary put on a clinic for the Panthers to see them smoke the Dragons 46 points to 10. 240 odd run meters as a 7, that's pretty unheard of. 3 tries and a couple try assists as well. He's just on a different level, and Penrith, they look in the box seat for their 4th straight premiership. I mentioned them in Melbourne, they're your front runners for your GF, but it looks like they just have another level still to go to, and I think Melbourne, they're more of that grinding style. They can still strike with some weapons, of course, but it just looks like Penrith just have things so figured out at the moment. They'll be highly motivated as well to send out the likes of your Luais, your Fisher Harrises off with a 4th straight ring. Speaking of Fisher Harris, he's injured this week. Ivan, if you're a good bloke and ex-Warrior, Nathan grew up over here. Surely you still got some Kiwi roots running through that heart of yours. I reckon he should rest James Fisher Harris for the rest of the season now to get him primed and ready to come to the mighty Wars when we win the comp next year. In all seriousness though, shout out to Jesse McLean. Thought he looked unreal at centre. He's the perfect Taylor May replacement, and I think that was actually in the back of their mind too when they let him go. I believe it was just multiple strikes and they were fed up with the bloke, but it helps when you got a young talent, Mike McLean, to slot straight in. I believe his twin brother, a pretty handy winger too, so shit, their parents must be bloody proud. The Roosters, they held on after being up 28-12 at halftime to beat Manly by the skin of their sacks, 34 points to 30. Luke Carey doing his best to throw the game, intercepts galore, but what an important win for the Chooks to move into 3rd and cement themselves in the top 4. And then shout out to the Titans too, down 14-0 after 20 minutes. They turned on 21 unanswered points to get themselves the win and do the Warriors a favour too, and taking 2 points away from the Dolphins, who I have as a side to drop out of the 8 in the next few coming weeks, and I think we will replace them in that finals run home. Speaking of the Warriors too, of course, let's touch on that game. The boys got the job done, but it wasn't exactly the most clinical display, but the most important thing for me was coming away from that with 2 points. That keeps our finals hopes alive, gets us back into the winner's circle. We're now just 3 points outside of the 8 with a bye still to come. We had the potential to pile on a whole lot more points with the possession and territory we had in this game, but we completed at 77%. Again, our own errors, a lot of them unforced too, continue to be our Achilles heel. I thought we could have been up by 30 or 40 at Oranges, to be completely honest. The Tigers making so many poor errors. Still think our red zone attack needs a lot more work. We're scoring tries on pure ability rather than breaking down defences with strike plays. Our middle forwards just dominated all game long, but we couldn't quite put the icing on the cake when I think we had opportunities to do just that. For me, standouts, 2 big names with double-barrel last names really stood up and stole the show. Adam Fanua-Blake, meter eater through the middle. Scored another try, his 8th for the year, only 2 behind Dallin as our top try scorer. Ran for 222 run meters, had a game-high 86 PCMs, a line break, 5 tackle breaks, 21 tackles, and 0 misses. He was my better bear, best performance of the week, and deservedly so. And for me, it was his work off the ball yet again, running those those downlines which really stands out. He ties up opposition defenders because you have to stop for him whenever he's so close to the line. If you don't, walks or a halves will just play a nice little short ball and he'll dot down, hit the coldest celebration in the game, as we saw him do. Ran a beauty of a lead line which led to that Ali Leotoa try. It's such an underrated part of his game and it's a key aspect to our red zone attack too. So shout out to AFB who continues to perform despite plenty saying that he'd put the Q in the rack once he decided he was leaving the Sharks. He said all alone he wants to go out on a high, loves playing for the Warriors, and he continues to tick boxes week in and week out. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, 293 metres in the one jersey, 6 tackle breaks, a line break, dangerous on kick returns, and had that vintage high work rate, but it was his defensive work for me which really impressed. Saved probably 4 or 5 tries, including that one-on-one make he made on Jareem Buller. I think it was an ankle tap, he only just clipped him, but not many fullbacks would have made that play, so shout out to you, Rog, an unreal knock at the back. Ali Leotoa, mentioned him last week. I was excited to see him get back-to-back starts for the first time in his young NRL career, and he certainly didn't disappoint. What a talent this bloke is. 21 years old and looks so comfortable playing at the highest level, and he's not just playing too, he's standing out. Scored a great try, dished up another to Ed Kossie with a great try assist, a beautiful quick pass, showed off his strong skill set, and that's not an easy play to make too. When you have a defender jamming in on you like that, so easy to come up with an error, not quite execute the final play, but he nailed it. I thought he had some dominant yardage carries as well, 119 run meters, and then arguably his most impressive part for me was his work on defense. 10 tackles, 0 misses, looks like he has the potential to be an elite defender, and when you look at his combined stats from his 4 NRL games so far, he's made 30 tackles and he's only come up with 3 misses. He's tackling at a 91% career clip in a position which is bloody hard to defend into. As a centre, you got so much to factor in, whether to jam off sweeping plays, you got fullbacks injecting themselves, looking to isolate you. You also come up one-on-one against some of the game's elite attacking players as well. So shout out to Ali. Between him, Moala Graham-Talfa, who was impressive yet again, Boot Laceberry and Adam Pompey, we have 4 of the great young centres, and I'm excited to see how they all continue to develop over the next couple of years. Shout out to CHD, stoked for the bloke, goal kicking, finally raising flags again, and I couldn't be prouder of the crowd for getting around him as well. When he banged that nudge, it was almost like another win within the game. He had a rough start. His first 2 kicks from the left-hand sideline, the hardest nudges for a left-footed kicker. Thought the first one was going over, but it fell short, which no doubt rattled him a little, and he actually said he was one more miss away from giving up the tee for the night. You'd have to assume Mitch Barnett or Tamaire Martin would have taken it, which would have been interesting to see, but the third one was a charm, and shit was it good to see his reaction. He was clearly pumped to bang it over. Meant a lot to him and the crowd as well. He's just one of those blokes that you can't not love. Thought he had a strong all-round game too, really pressing his case to continue to wear the 6 jersey, and if not, be picked in the 17 in the weeks to come. For the Tigers, I thought Lockie Galvin was dangerous. That young kid's still so much potential. Charlie Staines, old shit Staines, he must hate playing at Mount Smart because he got sat multiple times by both Kossie and Roger, and if you remember last year he got turned into a turnstile by Marcelo Montoya at Mount Smart as well. Almost butchered a try by getting too creative, running right to the sideline and trying to pull off a real Dallin-like dive. I thought IPAP was good. He dotted down, rocking possibly the shittest lid in the comp, the old side neck ratty. That just isn't the one. But this is a young team that just needs to stick together for me until Luai and Taruva get there. I think they'll have massive impacts. Also some rumours, Brian To'o is keen to join his Penrith teammates, which would be a great get for them. So hopefully Benji can just keep them up and about. They've got a couple big ins returning this week, Olam and Clemmer, which I think will give them a boost. And they're back at Leichhardt, so hopefully they can dust off that win and go about their work. Finally, when talking Warriors from last week, just wanted to touch on a few conversations I had in the old TAB lounge before we kicked off. And for those that don't know, I actually MC that lounge. It's a bloody good gig. Really enjoy it. Some great punters up there, some real diehards watching the game week in and week out. The first convo I had was with Tohu Harris, and I thought it was really interesting to note. I asked him about his injury, how he was tracking and how it came about. He mentioned he actually picked up that wrist injury in round 20 last year, so he's He's been getting injections weekly just to play through and go about his day-to-day life. It just shows how much these guys push through week in and week out, and I don't think people realize none of these guys are ever 100%. They're always carrying niggles. They're never quite feeling perfectly fresh. Everyone's battered and bruised, but you just got to do what you can do to get yourself out there and push on through. So to deal with that for a year is pretty out the gate, and it just shows how much this team means to our skipper. He said it got to the point, though, where he wasn't able to play his best footy, and it felt like he was really affecting him, so he had to get the surgery. Tracking well to be ready to rip into a big preseason, so shout out to you, Tohu. Certainly tough as nails, and still our skipper, that's for sure. And then the second convo I wanted to touch on was one with Ngani Laumape, and that's actually where that quote arose from that the Warriors posted during the week. Mentioned to him, does he get FOMO as an ex-Warrior looking back, seeing the club, the success it's had, the sold-out crowds, the hype that it's created here in New Zealand. Didn't expect him to come out and say he's been telling his manager that he's keen to come back and to reach out to the club to try get something across the line. I actually thought he'd be more likely to play at Mount Smart for Moana than the Warriors, but clearly he'd be keen to come back. Did get me thinking too, just where would he fit? And obviously with our young centres, we have 4 great options there, and personally, I don't want to stunt their development by giving minutes to Ngani. He's 31 years old now. I think all 4 of those players could really benefit from more time in the saddle. So personally, I'll be thinking of him more as a wing option, someone from the same cut of cloth like a Brian To'o. Of course, he's not tall, 1.78 m, so he's actually still 4 centimetres shorter than Brian To'o. He would be a kick target for opposition sides. I just have images in my head of someone like a Xavier Coates just jumping over the top of him, but at the same time, I really do think he could do some of his best work on those yardage carries, just bending the line against fatigued defences on kick returns as well, just using that power, his low centre of gravity, to really start our sets on the front foot. I heard Webby say this whole comment has been blown out of proportion. He isn't someone that they've spoken to or about, but also that they're always keen to talk to elite athletes about coming to the Warriors, so not sure if this will progress any further, but watch this space because it certainly has become a topic early doors this week. Something I'd be pretty keen to see happen, but at the same time, it would have to be for a discount as well, because I do think we'd be better off spending our money on other people. So on we go to this week, and it's another huge week. Still so many teams in finals contention. Plus, we have a really interesting race in the 3 to 6 position on the ladder, with teams trying to secure home finals games and 5 massive games outside of the Warriors clash that could have big finals ramifications for our side. On Thursday night, one of those teams playing to push their way into the top 4 is the Cowboys. 2 points out of the 4 at the moment, sitting in 6th, and their low points for and against will probably deny them of a top 4 spot as well. They got 2 big outs this week. No Jason Taumalolo, old Taumalaho, and Ruben Cotter. He's out with brain cell depletion. Have to say, that was one of the most ugly knockouts I've seen in a while, and hopefully the old workhorse is recovering well. For the Tigers, this game's at Leichhardt, where they've been really good this year. They've got a bloody impressive record there. They welcome back Justin Mollum and David Clemmer, like I mentioned, for a bit of experience. So maybe they show up and give it a decent crack. Wouldn't write off the Tigers here paying juicy odds, but this is one of those games the Cowboys would have circled as a must-win to secure themselves a home finals berth. They also still have a bye and a really favourable draw running home. Lots of home games, so signs are pointing up for the Cows. Friday night footy, doubleheader, kicking off with the game of the round. Warriors taking on Parramatta in another sold-out Mount Smart Stadium. 8 p.m. kickoff, that time slot that we do so well. Sold-out Fortress for the 10th straight time this year, and now the finals run really kicks up another gear because we get some big dogs back, and shit am I excited for this one. CNK, Mr. Safe as Houses, back in the 1 jersey and ready to rip in. SJ, the Prince of Penrose, he's healthy, feeling 100% and ready to remind some people with short memories why he is still one of the best to ever do it. Then Matt the Jet, he's back for the New South Wales Cup side as well. Business end of the season, and we're starting to get back some key bodies. Look out, top 8, we're well and truly coming for ya. And team news, like I touched on for the Warriors, Charnze back in the 1, ready to unlock our red zone attack, and lots of people straight away in the comments saying that Rogers should be at the back after how good he was last week. And look, I get it. I realise what people are saying he's a world-class fullback, but for a few reasons, I believe this is the best option for our team and how we want to play our footy. Number one, his ball playing out the back of shape, in my opinion, is a lot stronger than Rogers at this stage, and his combination with SJ out the back of shape is really strong too. Having Charnze run out the back of those block shapes, those sweeping plays, playing that link role makes us so much more dangerous. When you look at last week, Roger, quite often he was so deep on attack that it kind of stopped us dead in its tracks. You won't get that with Charnze. Him and SJ have played a lot of football together, more time in the saddle, and I think that they will show that combination is still elite on Friday night. Number two, Charnze's elite communication on defence, and Webby was saying earlier in the week in his press conference that Roger, he struggled a little to adjust back into fullback defensively due to the communication that is needed to organise the defensive line and count numbers and communicate it on the run. It's not an easy thing to do. Yes, he saved a couple tries himself last week, but the Tigers did have some pay catching us short on a number of occasions, so a bit of that could have to do with Rogers' ability to communicate gaps from the back. Finally, in Webby we trust, and this is the most important reason for me. That's the saying, so let's just trust our Dally M coach to know what he's doing and make the right decisions for this team. Rogers' best attacking attributes when he plays at fullback are his unreal kick returns, his ability to beat defenders one-on-one, and his strong yardage carries when he uses that unreal footback, unleashes the power of those beautiful baby cows, and whacks defenders left, right, and centre, all of which he can do from the wing position. I actually think that suits him more. Having Rog on the wing also allows us to form a deadly left edge combination with Ale Leotoa, giving us some of the best strike on that side in the competition. And when you look at the bigger picture as well, having Ali, Rocco, Bootlace Berry once he's back from injury, Dallin Watene-Zalesniak and Charnze Nicoll-Klokstad, that is a deadly back five and one of the most feared going round in our game. Good to see Moala get another run in the centres. He's undefeated as a Warrior, so that's a good luck charm for us right there. In the halves, CHT partners SJ, their first start together since 2022. Unfortunate for Tamari Martin, who drops out of the 17, but at the same time, I do wonder if he's been carrying a bit of a niggle over the last 2 weeks. Hasn't quite looked at full health, but man, did he do a good job for us over that SJ injury period. In fact, I think he started the last 15 games on the trot for us in either the 6 or 7, so shout out to T for digging in deep and going the big lift. CHT though, I think he'll be a great half partner for SJ. He's that less dominant type of ball playing 6. In my opinion, he plays his best code when his 6 is a legit run first threat. Think of Lukey Metcalf early doors. Chanel Harris-Tavita doesn't quite have the same speed as Luke, but he's a bloody good ball runner, allows the Prince to be the dominant ball player. CHT can pick his moments to involve himself, and I think he'll do that bloody well. SJ, welcome back, lad. Mentioned before, I think people are way too quick to forget just how good he is, and watching him at trainings, he looks up and about, feeling great and ready to rip in. His long kicking game for us is going to be incredibly valuable. If you look at the best teams in the competition, they all have a big boot at 7. SJ, he's right up there with the best in the comp in that aspect. In fact, he's still ranked 5th for total kick meters this year, ahead of guys like Jerome Hughes, despite having only played 12 games this season, which is a pretty wild stat. In the pack, we get dished up the same starting 4 pack for the 4th week in a row after they dominated the weak gutted Cats last week. On the bench, one change unfortunately, Jackson Ford, he's picked up a knee injury, so he'll be out for about 3 to 4 weeks. Nothing too serious, which is good news, but it's still a bit of a blow. Tom Ale comes back in to replace him. Dimitri Sufakula in the 18 jersey, a chance to slot in, which I personally would love to see. Hopefully we see a bit more from Holy Heka. Here comes Lecker as well. Only played 9 minutes last week. Would like to see him push that up to around the 15 to 20 minute mark, because I think he's deserved that off the back of his performances in the past. For Parramatta, no changes to the side who got pumped by the Storm. Love that. Shout out to Trent Barrett, one of the great interim coaches. Not a lot to touch on for them, to be fair. When you look at their roster though, I will say they really shouldn't be sitting in 17th position. When you got names like Clint Gutherson, Will Penasini, the Stone Kona, Blaze Talangi, Dylan Brown, Regan Campbell-Gillard, Sean Lane, Bryce Cartwright, the old Cardi Party, Ryan Madison, the poor man's Lussick as well off the Remu, and actually a bit of an interesting head-to-head matchup there. Freddie up against Joey, the battle of the 14s to see who will have the bigger impact. Also, we get dished up the return of the mustard man, Dejan Arce back in the halves. They should really have more than 4 wins with quality footballers like that on their roster, but this won't be the week they get their 5th. This is going to be a Mount Smart massacre, and the fans at the Fortress are in for an absolute treat. Interesting to note too, Parramatta, they haven't been here in more than 7 years. They last played at Mount Smart back in round 6, 2017. We bet them 22 points to 10. They hate coming here. It's also the 7th straight year where they'll only play them once in a season, so they're one of our less familiar opponents, but that won't stop us from 13 plus in them and get up the mighty Waz. 2 points here. You factor in the 2 points from the bye that we still have guaranteed to come, and that would put us just 1 point outside the 8. How bloody good. Following that game, Roosters take on the Finns in Perth. Not an easy trip to make for either team, and I actually love this for the Warriors again because we play the Dolphins next week at Suncorp. They have to go to Perth and back before taking us on, and that will take a big toll on their recovery. Dolphins desperate to break a 2-game losing streak, hanging on to 8th purely down to their points for and against, tied with the Raiders and the Dragons on 24 points. Wayne Bennett, he's made no changes, so they'll trot out the same 17 that went down to the Titans. For the Chooks, the old Cox, Joey Manu comes back in for them, which is big, allows them to put old man Jennings on ice, and we all know Joey, he's one of the elite attacking threats in the competition. He'll give them a bit more punch, and I think they'll be too strong for the Redcliffe Finns. Super Saturday triple header, Titans vs Broncos, Seabus Super Stadium, which apparently isn't just your standard stadium. She's a fucking super stadium. No changes to the 17 for the Titans, but I do see AJ Brimson listed on the extended bench. He could be a late inclusion, which would be huge for them, as well as Jermaine Jolliffe, who is one of the elite alliteration names. He was born to be a rugby league footballer, and he's a pretty handy player too, so potentially 2 big ins for the Titans. For the Broncos, no Cobb & Co, of course, so Rolled Oates comes in for him on the wing. Piakura, he's listed to be back too. I'm actually backing the underdogs here. I like the Titans to get the job done and go 2 from 2 against their big brother this year, which would be a great win for the Warriors as well. With the Broncos hot on our heels, that would effectively rule them out for the rest of the year. Storm vs Dragons, Mad Dog Munster back into the starting side after dipping his tip in last week off the bench. This week we get the full course. Crazy to hear he's having double hip surgery in the off-season as well. That shower slip in the pre-season really did its damage. Interested to see Fa'alongo at 18th man. He's too good for me not to make the 17, and I thought he'd had a massive impact off the bench over the last couple of weeks. Bellamy surely needs to find a spot for him. For the Dragons, Sloan is back at the back. Toby Couchman, who I think's been one of their best, he's unfortunately suffered an HIA, but in a nice touch, it'll be his brother Ryan Couchman who replaces him in the side. And then Blake Laurie, one of their best from last year, he also comes back into the team. I'm tipping the Storm by plenty here. They're at home, Amy Park, so that's almost a guaranteed dub alone. Sharks versus Bunnies to round out your Super Saturday. Will Kennedy back in the side for the Sharkies. Mulatalo, though, he's out with a knee injury. Looks like he'll be out for 4 to 6, so that's a big blow to their attacking strike in the back line. For the Bunnies, Blue Eyes, one of the best looking blokes in rugby league, Cam Murray, he's back. Unfortunately, AJ, he's out for the rest of the season though, and the next 6 to 9 months it appears, with a snapped Achilles. Bloody horrible injury to witness. You feel so sorry for him. It looks so painful. Hope he recovers well and can come back next year to chase down that try-scoring record. It'll be a real shame if he comes back not quite as strong as how he's been over the last couple of years. Super Sunday, double-header to wrap up the round. Panthers versus the Knights. Knights really rolling the dice here. They've moved Wellington Phoenix, aka Phoenix Crossland, into the 7 jersey. Not at hooker. He's playing in the halves. Hastings Hastings, he's dropped old Napier, so a big shake up in their back line. Not going to help them much though, up against the red-hot Panthers side at Bluebet. Mentioned no James Fisher-Harris, no Dylan Edwards, both out with injury. Dane Laurie out as well, but they'll still get the job done easily and do the Warriors a favour, handing the Knights an L. Look out for young Isaiah Longy as well, who's making his debut at fullback. Plenty of people saying at most clubs he'd be a week in, week out starter. If he wasn't behind Dylan Edwards, he would have made his debut long ago. So another one from this Penrith factory that looks to be the real deal. And then Doggies versus Raiders. Love this game for the Wars too, with the Dogs hopefully dishing out another L to the Raiders and helping us on the ladder there as well. Two names back in the mixer for them, Critter and the Fox, both named to start. Tough on Jarrell Skelton, who ran amok last weekend, but what can you do when both those guys are back? You just have to find room for them, and unfortunately, here's the sacrificial lamb for the Raiders. Milestone game for Josh Papali, 300th game, and to celebrate, they've brought back the Big Red and Corey Horsburgh as well, fresh after getting dropped by Tommy Ale at Mount Smart a couple weeks back. And what a fall from grace he's had. Origin last year to getting humbled in New South Wales Cup, punched Jacob Laban in the face and he literally laughed at him straight after. He'll play his second NRL game of the year. Get up the Doggies, and hopefully they teach old Horsburgh a lesson. So the perfect scenario for us this week is the Dragons, the Knights, the Raiders, the Finns and the Broncos all lose. And when you look at their opponents, the Dragons, they have the Storm, the Knights, they have the Panthers, the Raiders have the Dogs, and the Finns, they have the Roosters. That's literally 4 of the top 5 sides in the competition at the moment, taking on the teams that we need to lose. We've got Para, so hopefully we bank the 2 points then, and then it's pretty much the perfect week as a Warriors fan. Gotta love that. The ambush on the 8 is well and truly on. Then the NRLW went 4 from 5 on my tips there last week, with the Eels beating the Broncos to ruin my perfect start. Shout out to Broncos prop though, Aneta Nuasala, who threw hands, punched old Kennedy Cherrington in the face. But good to see the women bringing back the biff. I think she got a 4-week ban, to be fair, but you just love that. That's going to get bums on seats as well. It was a bloody good round of quality football too. That Knights versus Roosters game, although she only finished 12 points to 10, some of the attack and defence on display from that was top shelf shift. 5 more games this week, 2 on your Saturday, 3 on your Sunday, so strap into that. She's going to be another great weekend of God's game, rugby league football. The squads are in. Razor's named his team for the Rugby Championship, going from 32 to 36 names, and there's been a fair few talking points and headlines to arise from this one as well. We'll start with your new inclusions. Let's go through those. Sammy Kane, old skipper Sam, he is back. 5 games off 100 tests, and he'll get the opportunity to achieve that milestone and become the 13th All Black Centurion this year. By the looks of things, a little torn by this one if I'm being totally honest. I'm a big fan of Sam and the work he's done in an All Blacks jersey. I think he was a great skipper and a world-class number 7, but the fact is, this is his last year of international rugby. It's year 1 of a World Cup cycle, and he won't be sticking around at the end of this campaign. So it does have me wondering a little if perhaps investing in a young Lucy like a Peter Lakai may have been a bit better served for us in the future. Don't get me wrong, I'm happy to see Sam there and end his international career on his own terms. I think he deserves that. I don't want him to bow out with that World Cup loss and that red card on his hands. I do wonder though if this is denying the opportunity for someone else to thrive, learn and grow in this environment. Perhaps Razor hasn't been overly impressed with the performances of Kelly Daltons, Luke Jacobson and Ethan Blackadder in the Sevens jersey in his absence, and he still believes he's our best starting option there. And Razor, he's clearly in a win now mindset with this selection too, so maybe his elite work at the breakdown will come in handy in beating South Africa. It just depends on the 2 different ways you look at it, I guess. Happy for Sam, want to see him go out a winner, and I still think he's a bloody handy footballer, but year 1 of a 4-year cycle, would a Peter Lakai be a better selection? Shit, I'm just not sure. Sam Derry also included after a strong showing on short notice against Fiji. Called in for that game, thought he played bloody well, so he earns his call up to the full-time squad. Josh Lord, he'll also be joining the side as injury cover for Scotty Barrett, who looks like he'll be missing time with a finger injury. Then in the backs, couple changes here, some big ones too. Noah Hotham, he's won the 3rd 9 spot after impressing in his 50-odd minutes on debut. He's pushed out Finlay Christie Christie in what is a pretty big call. And I'm a fan of Noah's. I've said all along, him, Roygaard, Ratama, they will be the big three in the 9 jersey for me. But at the same time, I find it hard to believe that Finlay is now the 5th best 9 in the country. Seems a little harsh, and while he was disappointing against England in particular, I do think a lot of the work he does and the game that he brings is pretty underrated. At the same time though, I back this call. It's an exciting one, and I thought Noah looked bloody sharp and well and truly at home at the game's highest level. David Havili, he's been called into the midfield in a decision that for me makes no sense at all, and to be honest, it grinds my gears a little. This is the one I'm most pissed off about, purely because I don't see how he's going to play any minutes in a midfield where for me, we have 3 great options currently fighting to wear the 13 jersey in what is probably our most hotly contested spot in the side. The way I see it, Geordie locked in at 12. He's always going to be there. Then you have Proctor, who was great against Fiji, Leonard Brown, who I thought was our man of the match in that game, and then Rieko Ioane, who's been the incumbent. He's worn that 13 jersey over the last couple years. All 3 of them duking it out to see who will start in the centre spot. So where Havili fits into this after barely playing for the Crusaders this year, and when he did, I thought he looked a bit patchy. This is confusing for me. I would have preferred we use this spot either to pick Lakai as an extra loose forward, carry a young buck, give them the opportunity, or give the nod to Harry Plummer, someone like that who was probably the best back in Super Rugby this year behind D-Mac. I thought he helped lead the Blues to a championship. He's in form, he's versatile, he can play 12 too. I'm not sure what Havili did to outplay him and raise his mind and get into this squad, but it is what it is, and it could purely come down to Razor trusting him due to his time together at the Crusaders. Then in the fullbacks, we get 2 huge inclusions. Will Jordan returning, love this, and then also a potential debut for Ruben Love, who started Super Rugby with a hiss and a roar, fell away a little bit at the back end of the comp in my opinion, but there's just no denying how talented this lad is, and I'm incredibly excited to see what he can do at the international level. For me, Will Jordan, the 15 jersey is his now. He's done his time on the wing. He deserves first crack at it now that he's healthy and the opportunity to play in his preferred position. I'm not sure if he'll be ready to go next week for that first test against Argentina, but as soon as he is good to go, I'd love to see him thrown straight back in there. I think he might be playing for Tasman in a preseason game this weekend just to get a bit of time under his belt, which is promising signs. He's such a classy footballer, an elite attacking weapon. For me, he has shades of a Christian Cullen-like threat at the back. I'm not saying he's the next Cullen, because shit, I reckon he's the best ever fullback, but he has the potential to be right up there and be a massive weapon for us in our arsenal. Interesting too to see Stephen Perifeta in this side as well. When you look at it, there's basically 5 fullbacks in this team if you're going off where players were picked in that previous squad. Will Jordan, Ruben Love, Perifeta, Bowden Barrett, all 15s, and then you got D-Mac who can play there as well. So it's going to be interesting. Do they start Bodie at 10? Do they use him off the bench? Or will it be D-Mac starting at 10? That is going to be a battle that I think will be ongoing and bloody interesting to watch, particularly with who they start in those games against South Africa over there. In terms of your exclusions, Finlay Christie, like I touched on, that was a big one, pretty brutal, but at the same time, I think he will be back in this team at some stage. This will light a fire under him, and I expect him to have a massive campaign for the Tasman Mako in the MPC. Amoni Narawa, feel really sorry for him. He misses out after playing 20 odd minutes in that Fiji game. I think he's a victim of Will Jordan and Ruben Love both being picked, which is just unlucky, I guess, because they're both bloody good. But he still has the ability for me to be one of the best attacking threats in world rugby on his day. Don't think he's been given the opportunities to show it at the top level just yet, and I hope that we see him make that end of year tour where perhaps he can show a bit more of that razzle dazzle. Some big calls made, but overall this squad is just stacked, and I think the fact you can leave out Christie, Imone, Hoskins Tutu, Peter Lakai still just shows how much depth we have in New Zealand rugby at the moment. So we get another week off, then that Rugby Championship gets underway next week with Aussie taking on the Springboks as the entree in Brisbane. That'll be an interesting watch. Joe Schmidt currently undefeated, but you have to say The quality of opposition, it's been far from the level the Box will be at, and they'll be stinging after dropping that second game to Ireland and splitting the series at home. So looking forward to watching that. Then we get the All Blacks versus Argentina in Wellington. Don't expect there to be too many changes next week. That key selection for me will be who wears the 13 out of Proctor, Leonard Brown and Ioane. I think the week after, if we beat Argentina convincingly in that first game, we might see a few more changes there. A potential debut for a Ruben Love, Noah Hotham to get some minutes, Wallace Atiti and co. So watch the space. Also next week, we get the NPC kicking off, and this for me is my favourite level of code. Outside of international footy come World Cup time, this is the time where I get most invested into my rugby. Kicks off next Friday, Taranaki taking on Counties, followed by Auckland taking on Wellington from Eden Park. That's two of the competition big dogs going at it right there. I'll do a full round preview next week, but there's just something special about NPC level. Getting around your province, supporting the talent from the clubs, watching some guys kick on from club level to NPC and then push their way into Super Rugby. That's what gets the blood pumping through my veins. Auckland and Wellington, they're stacked, so they come in as favourites and deservedly so, but don't underestimate Taranaki, last year's champs. If Stephen Petafeta plays a bit of football for them in the 10 jersey, then he's bloody elite at that level, and I think that could push them on to win back-to-back premierships. Bay of Plenty, like them as a real outsider, and then I love my province, North Harbour, and of course extremely biased on them, the Mighty Coat. We're a feeder team for them, and we've got plenty of bodies in that squad too. Bryn Gordon, Carl Ruzic, two of the greats right there. But when you look at this Harbour team on paper, the inclusion of Bryn Hall, who's back from Japan, good Northcote lad. Then you got Tane Edmund making the trip over from the Tars to wear the 10 jersey. Keen to see what he can do over here. Karl Tuinukuafe, ex-All Black prop, back from France, ready to rip in. Sean Stevenson, ready to prove a point as well and show Razor he should be in the mix instead of Ruben Love. Wallace Atiti, if he gets released, saw he was training with the team during the week, so maybe he's a chance if he doesn't get picked week in and week out, and the All Black coaches want these guys to get minutes, and fingers crossed that's their method around it too, and that's the approach they take, because I think that's bloody good for the game. That gets bums on seats and local fans to turn out. Shout out to Harbour too, and I think most unions did this for their first game. They chucked up 1,000 free tickets for fans to claim, so you gotta love that. There's some real quality throughout this competition. I think there's going to be a lot of upsets. Great competition to have a punt on, which I'll touch on shortly too. But get up the NPC and can't wait for next Friday. And then finally, on your last talking point for your rugby, I just wanted to point out Tonga losing to the Reds on the weekend. I mentioned they were in trouble once they lost to Spain, and I actually said to back the Reds in this game, and a bit of that was tongue-in-cheek. I didn't think they'd pull it off, but man, Tonga got smoked. 41 points to 14 in Tonga at home as well. This is really worrying signs. The Reds, they're hardly a Super Rugby powerhouse. They're missing their Wallabies as well. What's going on with this Tonga side? I understand they don't have the likes of your Charles Piutau, Israel Folau and co at their disposal at the moment, but still, they should have enough quality footballers throughout these Super Rugby teams, your local talent as well, to get the job done against the Reds. So fingers crossed they can turn it around. I believe them, Samoa, Japan, Fiji have a big Pacific Nations Cup kicking off shortly too. I'll be getting behind Samoa and Fiji in that one. Friend of the show, Murphy Taramai in the Samoa squad, as well as Latiru Tolai and Ben Nini, three great ex-Coat lads. So looking forward to that competition getting underway as well. An absolute treat of rugby union coming up in the weeks ahead. Weekly wrap, aka Olympics chat, and finally we have a medal, and it's gold in the sevens for our Black Ferns girls, getting the job done, beating Canada in a pretty tense final to get the dub. Canada, shout out to them, they weren't the opposition we were expecting to play, upset the highly fancied Australians in the semi-final, who actually went on to shat the bed and didn't win a medal at all, losing the bronze final to the USA, which you love to see. That didn't rattle our girls though, who stayed composed, played a good final, got the job done to go back-to-back at the Olympics on the biggest stage, gold on gold, unreal shit right there. It was a farewell tour for two of the greats as well, and Portia Woodman, who I actually reckon is off to join the Warriors in the NRLW next year. Nothing confirmed there, just rumour mill, but she said she won't be playing sevens, but she's not hanging the boots up, which to me is a bloody big hint. She's probably been the GOAT of women's sevens, not only here in New Zealand, but worldwide, so sad to see her go, but shit has she been unreal whenever she pulled on the black jersey. Tyler Nathan Wong, she also leaves as New Zealand's most capped women's sevens player in history, and alongside Portia, they are two of the greatest to ever do it, so I'm happy for them, happy for this team, a great mix of experience and youth. The future looks so bright for this women's sevens program. Shout out to Michaela Blyde as well, a real freak, such a weapon with her speed, strength and footwork, and she was probably my player of the tournament. Another unreal shift from her. And shout out to the Hothams too, actually. What a month for them. Jazz wins gold in their first ever Olympics with the sevens. Noah, he debuts for the All Blacks and then makes the Rugby Championship squad. And then brother Legion, he wins silver at the Touch World Cup as well. A heck of a sporting family, all getting results on the world stage. That's bloody unreal. Unfortunately, it wasn't the same outcome for the men's side, who looked so sharp during pool play, but crashed out in the quarterfinals to the 8th-seeded South Africans, despite having bet them fairly convincingly just the day before. You could tell they were nervous in this game, started with passes hitting the deck, unforced errors, couldn't really find their flow on attack as the Springboks side just dragged them into a physical arm wrestle, which is where they play their best code, and then they just backed their defence, which was pretty elite. They defended us for multiple phases, hot on their line, kept turning us away, so they deserved to get the dub at the end of the day. Stand out for me, Moses Leo, thought he was elite, showing off his speed. He's a great strike winger who scored some good individual tries throughout the tournament and still put in a good knock in that quarterfinal as well. Incredibly gutted for these lads. Of course, Olympics, that is the pinnacle. You build your whole 4-year campaign off the back of that. Not sure if it will result in a funding cut. Fingers crossed it doesn't, because they've been so good all year. Just couldn't get it done in the tournament that really mattered the most to them. So shit, you gotta feel sorry for them. Congrats to France and the men's, who got the dub on home soil, beating Fiji in the final. Was happy for the French too. The crowd certainly got around them. Normally in a clash like this, I'll be riding home Fiji big time, and absolutely gutted if they didn't win it. I was sad they didn't, because you always love seeing our Pacific friends get the dub in a sport that is like religion for them. But at the same time, France, with Dupont in the mixer, they just became a whole lot more likeable. Sold out stands for both the men's and the women's sevens. And man, what a freak he is. Dupont just came in on short notice, couple of months to transition into the game. Coming in off the Remu had such a big impact on this team. And I gotta say, that celebration dance they did, pretty silky too. It was some in-sync, boys to men type of shit. Looked like they spent a lot of time practicing it, and they busted it out on 3 or 4 occasions to celebrate their dub. Deservedly so too. So your Kiwis in action over the next week or so. By the time you're listening to this, hopefully Hayden Wild would have ran in the old triathlon that keeps getting delayed due to that water quality in the river. Looks like a real poo pond, so fair enough to the athletes for not wanting to dive into that shit. Clearly, whoever was in charge of planning this didn't tick all the boxes, didn't dot the I's and cross the T's, so the saying goes. But he's a great shot at a medal, hopefully a gold or a silver, so get up the old Wild thing. Go bring another one home for us their horse. Lewis Clareburt, he's back in the pool tonight. Daniel Hillier, he tees off in the golf at 8:30 p.m. The sailing medal races, they're on in the morning, 2:43 and 1:35 a.m. And then tomorrow night, Zoe Hobbs kicks off her campaign in the 100 metres as well. 8:35 p.m. Friday night. That is prime time viewing, unfortunately, during the Warriors game, but hopefully it's right on halftime. It would be unreal to see a Kiwi in the 100 metre final. So get up, Zoe. The nation is right behind ya. Then Saturday morning, Walsh and Gill, they're both in the qualifying for their shot put at 6:10 a.m. Lisa Carrington, not in action till next Tuesday, where she will look to put those traps to great use. Shout out to Simone Biles and Team USA as well, who won gold in the team event in the gymnastics on your Wednesday morning. She's absolutely killing it, looking unreal. And if you haven't watched her latest doco on Netflix, thoroughly recommend it. Runs you through through everything she went through in Tokyo, where she went through a bit of a mental block, as well as throughout her whole career. She really is one of the greatest athletes out there, and definitely the GOAT of the gymnastics. She's now got 5 golds, 4 silvers, 2 bronze, and still 4 individual events to come in a league of her own, and seems like a bloody good human being as well. And then Team USA in the basketball, they were too good for Serbia and the Joker in game 1, 110 points to 84. They got a convincing dub. LeBron and KD, they were locked in. KD put on a shooting clinic, 23 points on 8 of 9 field goals and 5 from 5 from the three-point line. LeBron, 21 points, 9 assists, 8 rebounds. Interesting to see Tatum not take the floor, which seems a little bit strange. Just won a title at Boston and probably should have got MVP or joint MVP with Jaylen Brown. So clearly Steve Kerr has a few things to work out with his rotation there, but you could clearly see a big step up from Team USA from the warm-up games to when it was time to turn it on. They're taking on South Sudan, 7 a.m. this morning, so that game might have already been, and that's a team that they only bet by 1 point in the lead-in. I think they're going to smoke them now and show everyone now that they are playing for real. So plenty of Olympic sport to tuck the teeth into over the next 7 days. How bloody good is it? And get up the Kiwis. Hopefully, plenty of medals on ways. Right, fire up the TAB app or head along to their website, because it's time to get a little Ivan Leary, dish out some tips to hopefully get green ticks on your bet slips as you watch all the sporting action from the comfort of your couch this weekend. Another stacked round of the NRL, as you've already heard. Thursday night footy is back. Tigers go in $3.35 underdogs. Cowboys paying $1.33. The line is 9.5, which I think is quite juicy, because the Tigers have won 3 of their last 4 games at Leichhardt Oval. They love playing there. It's the only time they show a bit of backbone. The Cowboys, they've only won 1 of their last 10 games at Leichhardt as well. So Todd Payton's lads, they hate going there. Tigers fullback Jareem Buller, he scored 4 tries in his last 4 games at Leichhardt Oval. Kyle Felt, the Felt tip, he scored 7 tries in his last 5 NRL games in some prolific form. The Tigers, they've lost their last 7 straight Thursday night games, but this home crowd advantage and at this venue, I'm backing them to really go with the Cows. I'm not saying they're going to win, but for me, that Tigers plus 9.5 seems like a great bet. So for my same game multi for this one, and remember, if you place a 3+ leg same game multi, your bet loses by 1 leg, you'll get your money back as bonus cash up to $50. One of the great promos right there. So Tigers plus 9.5 into Jareem Buller and the Felt tip, paying $8.07 rugby league cents. Friday night footy, strap in. She's going to be an absolute bell ringer from the moment that whistle blows to the full-time hooter. It's going to be bums on seat stuff. Warriors $1.22 favourites. The Eels paying a massive $4.25 for good reason though. The Warriors won 3 of our last 4 games at Go Media Stadium, and also 3 of our last 4 against Parramatta at Mount Smart. The Eels, they'll play their first game here since 2017. Literally avoid this trip like the plague. And Warriors fullback Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, he scored 8 tries in his last 11 games against Parramatta. My best bet for this one, you already know I'm riding home Warriors 13 plus at $1.88. The bookies know that that is the best bet too, because they've set the line at 13.5 points, so we're right on that. So a bit of extra value there for your try scorers. Parramatta, they're conceding 45% of tries on their right-hand edge, which suggests to me that our left-hand attack is the way to go. Roger, 8 tries in 11 games against Parramatta. I love him here, and that combination he's going to form with Ali Leotoa has the potential to be one of the most deadly strike combos in the competition. So back either of those two to dot. Roger and Ali combo 2 or more tries is appealing as well. Dallin, he's short, but he loves scoring tries at home, so you could jump on board him. And Cootie Capewell is a bit of a value play. He's scored in the previous 2 games, paying $3.50 here to make it 3 tries on the trot. I think there's a bit of value around him. Interestingly, Parramatta have only conceded 14% of their tries through the middle of the field, so that suggests Adam Fanua-Blake and co, it could be a quiet night for them. They could be in for a bit of a battle up against Regan Campbell-Gillard and this Parramatta forward pack. That's the second best defensive middle in the competition, so perhaps we avoid and we just look to use that silk of SJ and Charnze lines out the back of blocking shapes to expose them on the edges and lead to meaties there. Then after that, Dolphins take on the Roosters in Perth. Dolphins paying $3.75, Roosters $1.28. The Chooks, they'll play in Perth for the first time since 1995. The Dolphins, they've surrendered a halftime lead in 3 of their last 4 games. So that Dolphins into Roosters halftime, full-time double paying $7. That could be a great shout. Dommy Young, he scored 6 tries in his last 5 games, dotted down last week. And then Jermaine Isaac, he scored a hat-trick in last year's game in Perth too. Personally, I like the Roosters here. I think they'll be too strong for a Finn side that's sliding without Jeremy Marshall-King. That halftime, full-time bet is tempting, so I might roll that as a single little side investment. But my same game multi I'm going to run in is just Roosters into Teddy and Dom. Pretty missionary stuff, but at $3.50, a chance to 3.5 times your money, then it's certainly nothing to scoff at. Super Saturday, triple header, 3 great games as well, all with pretty big importance for the mighty Warriors, or 2 of them at least. We kick it off with the Titans taking on the Broncos. Love these odds for the home side. The Titans going underdogs at $2.45. Broncos favourites, despite getting towed up at Suncorp last week, paying $1.55. The Titans, they're aiming for 3 straight wins against the Bronx for only the 2nd time in their history. The Broncos, though, they've won 7 of their 9 games at Seabus Super Stadium. Titans, they've won 3 of their last 4 at home, though, so a bit of a battle of the conflicting stats there. AKP, he only needs 1 more try to equal his own club record he set last year of 20 of the best, scoring them at a pretty unreal clip too. And then Ezra Mam, he scored 4 tries in 5 games against the Titans, so he's a good little single play there. Personally, I like the Titans here, especially on that line of plus 5.5 at $1.90. 1 to 12 is great value too at $3.70 if you can back them in to pull off the upset at home. For your try scorers, if you don't have AKP, you don't get Rugby League. 5 tries in his last 3 games. He also scored against the Broncos back in round 12, only paying $1.46, so you got to go 2 or more to get a bit of value from him. But at the same time, AKP into the Titans plus 5.5 could be a nice little multi for you there. Walshy, he scored in each of his last 3 games as well. $1.67 for him, not too bad. And Ezra, wham bam, thank you ma'am, at $2.05. Stats suggest he's a good go. For my same game claim here, I'm going a little more leery. I'm going to take that Titans 1 to 12. I think they will be too good, into AKP and Walsh for $9.62. A bloody sharp return there. Storm, $1.12 favourites over the Dragons, paying $6.50. That is one of the biggest amounts for a head-to-head bet that you'll see in a long time. The Storm, they've won 5 of their last 6 against St George. They've won 17 of their last 18 games at AME Park, and the Dragons haven't actually won in Melbourne since 1999, which is pretty fucked when you think about it. Dragons winger Christian Tuipulotu, he scored 6 tries in his last 4 games, paying $2.50. I love those wingers and underdog sides just to dot down for the solo meaty. You can often get some great value there, and this is certainly one of those cases. And then Jerome Hughes, he scored a try in all 6 games he's played against the Dragons. The headgear assassin, paying $2.70. Love that. So Storm 13 plus into Hughes and Tuipulotu, my bet for this one at $10.05. Then the Sharkies take on the Bunnies at Shark Park, $1.30 favourites. The lads from South Sydney paying $3.60. Sharks, they're aiming for home and away wins against the Bunnies for the first time in the same season since 2008. The Rabbitohs, they've only won 2 of their last 9 games at Shark Park. They hate it there. Cody Walker, he requires 2 more tries to get 100 NRL tries, paying $2.65 here. Sione Katoa, the old Katoa, the Sharks winger, he's scored 6 tries in his last 5 games against the Bunnies, and with no Molatalo on the other edge, I think the Sharks are really going to look to target his side. $1.50, nothing crazy for him. Tricky Trindle, though, he scored a try in his last 4 straight games, $2.60 for him. I love that value, so I'm thinking the Sharks get it done here. I don't mind that Bunnies forward pack, but it's their back line, particularly on the edges, that are really weak. They're missing AJ, they're missing Latrell, Jackie Wyden and Cody Walker, probably their only 2 regular starters, so I think that is where the Sharks will get the most pay. The line is 11.5. which is pretty tempting in favour of the Bunnies because I do back them to keep it within 12. But I'm just going to go Sharks straight up, head to head, simplify this one into Trindle and Katoa, paying $4.66. Your Sunday doubleheader, Panthers taking on the Knights. Warriors need the Panthers to get this done, and stats suggest it's a rugby league shoe-in. The Panthers have won 13 of their last 15 against the Knights. The Knights haven't won in Penrith since 2018. Brian To'o, he scored 6 tries in 6 games against the Knights. Didn't score last week, so that's basically a drought for the kid, paying $1.44. Knights, they have won 4 of their last 5 away games, but I think this is going to be a stretch too far. Penrith, with the people's chin back, they're just playing way too good. Not many. Mitch Kenny, he'll make his 100th NRL appearance too. Banged on him a couple weeks ago, paying $10. He's only paying $5.80 this week, which is pretty short, but as a milestone bet, that's a bloody good swing. So To'o for me, he's a must-have. I don't mind getting on Longy on debut for $1.96 as well. Sorensen, he's been impressive as of lately, $3.45. Scored last week and scored against the Knights back in round 15 as well. So maybe he can bag a double against them this season. So for my same game multi, I'm going Panthers 13 plus into To'o and Sorensen, paying $6.69. A bloody nice number. Then your final NRL game for the round, Doggies take on the Raiders. Doggies paying $1.38, Raiders $3.05. Bulldogs, they've won all 8 home games this season, but the Raiders, they've won their past 9 straight against the Bulldogs. Viliami Kikau, he scored 3 tries in his last 4 games. He's paying $3.20 on that potent edge he forms with Crichton and Josh Adokar. I think they'll send a lot of ball that way. Josh Papali, he'll play his 300th NRL game, $6.60 for him anytime. The old 660, someone to be around. Don't forget your roots bet. Not a bad shout there. And then Bulldogs second rower, Jacob Preston, he scored in back-to-back games at Belmore, $2.75 for him. The old people's mullet. So I think this is going to be fairly close. Fogarty's inclusion makes such a difference to this Canberra team, but I am backing the Dogs to make it 9 from 9 at home in front of a packed house at Belmore. So for my same game multi, Raiders, they're conceding 43% of tries to right side attacks. Preston, he is on that right edge. I think he's going to make it 3 straight. Then I'm going to back the Fox to salute on return. So Doggies into Preston and Fox, $5.64 for your NRLW. Unfortunately, odds aren't up at time of recording on the TAB app anyway, but I do have the games here for you, so I'll tuck my teeth into those and just give you a little prediction so you can form your own multis off the back of it. Raiders versus the Knights. I think the Knights will be too good there and make it 2 from 2 this season. Titans versus West. I think Titans get the chocolates there. Eels versus Sharks. That's going to be an interesting one. Eels got the dub over the Broncos last week. Sharkies, a big result for them, and there's lots of chat that they could be this year's biggest improvers. Eels at home though, so I'm going to back them in to get the win. Roosters versus Broncos, tight game there, but I'm going to back the Chalk, so I expect to be the second best team this year behind the Knights. And then Cowboys take on the Dragons. I think the Dragons get this one done. I was reasonably impressed with the work that they did last week, led around the paddock expertly by the Kiwi great playmaker in McGregor. So I think the Dragons get the job done despite being on the road and prove to be too strong for the old Cowgirls. Why they're called the Cowboys when it's the NRLW side, I think that's something that they need to look at personally. Rugby, NPC, chance to look at the outright markets here. Of course, the competition kicks off next week, so we turn to the futures and try get a few bets to ride home throughout this season. Auckland and Wally, they go in as favourites. The Lions, $3.50. Auckland at $4. They're your 2 best back sides alongside Canterbury as well. Oh, Canterbury paying $4. Last year's champs, I think they've been disrespected personally at $7, and if Stephen Petafeta can play a bit of footy for them, I think they have the squad to go back to back. So they're my value pick in terms of your outright winners for me. Then your bigger odds payers that I think are genuine sniff, Bay of Plenty at 21s and North Harbour at 30 runs for reasons that I've already stated earlier on in the podcast. And then to throw another bet out there as well, a cheeky little look ahead to next week to get some value odds before the market gets crunched in. I think that Harbour 1 to 12 up against Hawke's Bay at $3 $3.50 is great shopping. That's a bloody Briscoe's bargain for me. Harbour at home, the fact we're underdogs is beyond me. All those star players back in the mixer, the potential for Wallace Satiti maybe. Saw he was at training, so if he can lace up, then that would be huge. I genuinely think you won't get $3.50 this time next week, so if you want to jump on that bet early and secure yourself some great odds, then I would recommend Olympics betting. Plenty of markets to get on over the next week or so. We've got the men's shot put kicking off on Sunday. Tom Walsh to win a medal. He's paying $4.80. That's juicy stuff. He's the fourth best option just for him to sneak in and win a bronze. $4.80. Surely he's a sniff of that and worth a cheeky tenner. For your 100 metres, that final goes down on Sunday. Zoe Hobbs paying 21s to medal, but just making the final would be a bloody good achievement for her. The USA, Sakari Richardson, she's the clear favourite for gold in that race at $1.65, and I can't see anyone else winning this. I think the bookies have got it spot on, so back her. And then in the men's on Monday, I really like Noah Lyles to pull off the upset here for America. It's a two-horse race really between him and Thompson from Jamaica. They're both incredibly quick, and on their day either of them could get it, but I really like Noah at $2.75, so he will be my swing there. Next Thursday, Eliza McCartney, she's in the pole vault, paying $5.75 to medal. Love that. And then on Sunday, Hamish Kerr paying $1.62 to medal in the high jump and $4 for gold. He recently won that Diamond League meet right before the Olympics kicked off, so he's in bloody good form. I like that. $4 for the old Kerrinator to go and get us another dub. My bet of the week this week, I'm 15 from 20 on these now. Last week it was Black Ferns Sevens to win gold. We cashed that. Hell bloody good. This week, Warriors 13 plus, simple, up the guts, Adam Fanua Blake, Mitch Barnett, back-to-back, back fence carries type of stuff right there. That was a bloody hard sentence to spit out. $1.88, let's go the boys. And then for my magic multi, and this is where I always have a big swing, but this is one of the great swings, and if this pulls off, the Bears are well and truly on me at Danny Doolan's, paying $43.51, tenner on it to return $435 of the best. I've gone Tom Walsh to win a medal, $4.80 in your shot put. Ali Lautoa and Roger Tuivasa-Sheck to have 2 or more tries combined in that duos market at $2.45. And then the Titans to win against the Bronx, 1 to 12, paying $3.70. If you like that magic multi, make sure you get around it. Worth a cheeky little go, just in case she comes in. As always, we bet responsibly, and shout out to the TAB. That's us for another episode of Surly Talk Sport. As always, cheers for your ears. Hope you enjoyed it, and looking forward to catching you back here, same time, same place, next week to do it all again. Shout out to the TAB, home of sport and racing punting here in New Zealand, so get around them because they get around us. Shout out to Better Bear as well. She's the ultimate low-carb bear, 0 carbs, none of this 1 or 2 carb type of shit. She's 0, 87 cows, great on the rig, so if you're getting on the Bears this weekend, Simon Cannerings, the Scooey Moi Mois, then head along to your local bottle shop, grab yourself a box of Better Bear, comes in the bottles or in the cans, you won't regret it. She's a bloody grouse drop. Get up the Warriors, very important week for us, so fingers crossed we get the dub and all those results go our way as well. Excited to see the Prince of Penrose back on his domain, putting on a clinic, running amok and showing everyone he's still one of the best sevens going round. Get up the Kiwis in the Olympics too. Hopefully plenty great results on the way for us. I'll catch you back here, same time, same place, next Thursday to do it all again. Go well, enjoy your weekend. How good.